The message arrived at 8:07 on a Monday morning. Transaction declined. Please contact your card issuer. I stared at the screen confused. I tried again, declined. I opened my banking app expecting to see some technical problem. Instead, I found a series of notifications that made my stomach drop. My credit cards had been canceled. Not all of them. My emergency card, my travel card, even the card I had used for years without a single missed payment. I called the bank immediately. Can you tell me why my accounts were closed? I asked. The representative hesitated. According to our records, the accounts were canceled at the request of an authorized person connected to the financial profile. An authorized person, yes, ma'am. I already knew who it was. My father for most of my life. My father had believed that money gave him authority over everyone around him. He had built a successful construction company from almost nothing, and because of that, our family treated his word like law. When I was young, he controlled my allowance. When I went to college, he controlled my tuition. When I graduated, he helped me get my first apartment. And when I started working for his company, he convinced me that letting him handle the complicated financial stuff was simply part of being family. I trusted him. That was my mistake. After my mother died, things changed. My father became more controlling, especially when it came to money. Every decision had to pass through him. If I wanted to buy a car, he had an opinion. If I wanted to invest, he had an opinion. If I wanted to leave the family business, he had a warning: you don't understand how the world works. He would always say, but I had spent years learning. I had quietly built my own career. I had saved money, and more importantly, I had started taking control of financial accounts that my father didn't know existed. There was one thing he had never understood about me. I had been preparing for independence for years. The morning my cards were canceled, I didn't call him immediately. Instead, I called my attorney, then my financial advisor, then the bank manager within 2 hours. I had learned something shocking. My father had not only canceled my cards, he had attempted to freeze several financial accounts connected to a family trust. He believed the money belonged to him. It didn't years earlier. My mother had created a private investment trust. I had almost forgotten about it because she had always told me that I wouldn't understand its importance until I was older. She had been right. The trust contained investments, properties, and business interests worth far more than I had ever imagined. And there was one condition attached to it. My father could manage certain assets temporarily, but he could never personally control the trust. The ultimate controlling authority belonged to me. My mother had planned it that way. When I told my attorney what had happened, he leaned back in his chair. Your father doesn't realize what he's done. He said, what do you mean? He just triggered a review of every financial transaction connected to the trust. My heart started pounding. Can he lose access if he violated the trust agreement? Yes, for the first time that morning. I felt calm, then my phone rang. It was my father. I answered. What did you do? He demanded. Nothing. Don't lie to me. The bank contacted me. I almost laughed. You canceled my cards. I was protecting you from what? From yourself. There it was again. That same sentence. The sentence he had used my entire life. Whenever I made a decision he didn't approve of. I took a breath. You don't control my money anymore. Silence. Then he laughed. You have no idea what you're talking about. I think you should read the trust documents. His voice changed immediately. What documents? The ones Mom left. He didn't respond for several seconds. Neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, where did you get those? My attorney has them. My father hung up. That was the first time I had ever seen fear behind his anger. Over the next few days, everything changed. The trust administrators began investigating the accounts. They discovered that my father had transferred money between several companies without proper authorization. Nothing had been stolen, but he had crossed a line. A very serious one. Then came the meeting. My father arrived with 2 lawyers. I arrived alone. He looked at me as if he expected me to apologize. Instead, I placed a folder on the table. You wanted to control my finances. I said, so let's talk about what you actually controlled. Inside the folder were documents showing the true ownership structure of our family's investments. My father wasn't the owner. He was only a manager, and I was the beneficiary with final authority. His face went pale, you knew. I knew enough. He looked at the documents again. Your mother never told me. She didn't have to. That sentence seemed to break something inside him. For years he had acted like he was the strongest person in our family. But my mother had quietly protected us from his need for control, and now her plan had finally worked. My father tried to explain himself. He said he had only canceled my cards because he thought I was becoming irresponsible. He said he wanted to teach me a lesson. He said he believed I would come running back to him, but I wasn't a child anymore. I didn't need permission to live my life. I didn't need his credit cards. I didn't need his approval, and I certainly didn't need his money. The most painful part wasn't discovering that my father had tried to control me. It was realizing how long I had allowed him to do it. A week later, the financial restrictions were lifted. My accounts were restored, but I didn't reactivate the cards he had canceled. I didn't need them. I opened new accounts under my own name, separated every financial connection, and removed every person who had access to my private information. For the first time, my money was completely mine. Months later, my father asked to meet me. We sat in the same restaurant, where he had taken me after my college graduation. Back then he had told me, "One day you'll understand that everything I do is for this family." Now he looked older. I made a mistake. He said I didn't answer immediately. He continued, "I thought if I controlled the money, I could protect everyone. You confused control with protection." I said. He looked down. That was the first time I had ever seen my father admit he was wrong. I didn't forgive him instantly. Real life doesn't work that way, but I did something more important. I stopped being afraid of him. That was the real victory. The money had never been the most valuable thing my mother left me. It was the lesson. Never give someone complete control over your life simply because you love them. Never confuse financial dependence with family loyalty. And never assume that the person holding the keys is the person who owns the house. My father canceled my credit cards because he thought money gave him power over me. He didn't realize that the person he believed he controlled had quietly become the person who controlled the money. And when he finally discovered the truth, it wasn't my credit cards that changed. It was our entire relationship. Because sometimes the biggest inheritance isn't money. Sometimes it's the freedom to finally say, "You don't control me anymore."